Welcome to our final session of Rest and Renew. And in this session today, we will be exploring rest as a way of honoring our needs, because rest is something that we all need. However, for those of us that are healing from trauma, it can definitely feel like rest is scary, or perhaps a failure, or rest can even be triggering. So there's lots of different types of rest, as we explored in our previous session in this series, and it's up to you. I mean, really, there's so many different ways to rest. And so rest doesn't have to look like lying down, sleeping, and maybe it does. I mean, that's great too. That is absolutely a form of rest. But for some of us, rest might look a little bit different. Or maybe in different seasons of your life, rest looks a little bit more active, even though it is still a form of rest for you. So with that being said, I invite you to join me on your mat whenever you're ready. And you might find a seat, maybe sit on a bolster or a blanket. I'm sitting on a folded up blanket here, and we'll begin our session seated, but you can sit in any way that feels comfortable for your body. So if having your legs crossed like mine are doesn't feel welcome, you don't have to do it. You could sit with one leg out, you could sit with your feet, soles of your feet together. Anything works here, so please allow yourself to find what is best for you, because you are the only one who knows what that is. And when you're ready, you might start to come onto your mat. If your mind feels like it's still going a mile a minute, it might be helpful to keep your eyes open for a moment. Perhaps taking a little sweep around you with your gaze to allow your mind and your body to kind of catch up to this present moment. Noticing that you are sitting on your yoga mat. You are coming into this space. You're coming into your practice. A practice that is only yours, and that you have complete say in, you have complete control over, from start to finish. And at any point that you decide you might like to close your eyes, that is also an option, but not a requirement. You might bring some awareness to how you are sitting. Not that you have to change it, but maybe just tracing the outline of your body with your mind's eye to simply feel your body. Feel the shape that you're making. Perhaps noticing if there's any other areas of your body that might appreciate a little bit more support here in this seated shape, and if so, you can make any changes that feel needed. And we'll take another 3 or 4 rounds of breath here. Just being with our bodies, feeling what's present, noticing if there's any area of your body that feels a little tired, a little sore, or other areas of your body that might feel a little restless, a bit more energetic. I offer you this contemplation and affirmation for your practice today. I allow myself to slow down and rest. My need for rest is not a failure. It is how I honor my needs. My need for rest is not a failure. It is how I honor my needs. If you'd like, you could use that whole thing as an affirmation, or if you'd like to just shorten it into something a bit more memorable, that might be, rest is how I honor my needs. So whatever works for you. I invite you to exhale all of your air out if you'd like to join me. And then perhaps take a deep breath in through your nose. Letting it go however you'd like. Taking as many of these breaths as feels welcome. And with your next inhale, if you're ready to begin adding some small movements into your body, you might float your spine up towards the sky, feeling your spine grow a little bit taller. And then as you exhale, you could begin to drop your chin toward your chest. You might allow your head to grow heavy, just allowing the natural weight of your head to come forward. And you might choose to stay right here at center if this feels welcome. Or if you'd like to add a little bit of movement, you could sway your head to the left, sway your head to the right. And we'll be here for the next 6 or so rounds of breath, taking some time to just add this gentle movement into an area that a lot of us hold tension. I definitely do. My neck feels super tight right now. And so if your neck is feeling really tight, really tender, that's okay. You're not alone. Noticing that as you take this stretch or this movement, if there's anywhere else around your neck that is holding on to tension or clenching, such as your jaw or maybe your shoulders, and if it feels safe, you might allow your jaw to unclench and your shoulders to settle down toward the earth as we take our last 1 or 2 breaths here. Whenever you're ready to release, I'll meet you back at center. Option to take a moment of stillness to just kind of feel, or if you're feeling like you want to take a few shoulder rolls, neck movements, you could do that too. And with your next inhale, option to reach your arms all the way overhead, and then taking your right hand and placing it towards the back of your neck, the back of your spine. And I'll just move so you can see me. And then taking your left hand to your left elbow, you might begin to just gently press your right elbow kind of back, as if you were moving your right hand down your spine. Now be really mindful here, because you don't have to go far. It doesn't have to look like a big movement. As we just take a second to kind of open up these muscles on our arms, our triceps. For one more breath. Releasing whenever you're ready. Option to roll through your wrists, roll through your arms. And then we'll take the other side. So in your own timing, inhaling the arms up. Exhale, this time your left wrist, or whichever side didn't do last. Hand can be placed toward your neck or your spine, and your right hand can reach toward the top of your elbow. And only if you're already feeling a stretch here, you don't have to press your elbow back. You don't have to do anything, really. But if you want to, you could begin to apply that gentle, mindful pressure. This is an area that we don't often stretch, so it may or may not feel a little intense, or maybe it feels really relieving, really welcome. One more breath, or as many as you want. Releasing in your own timing. Option to roll through your wrists or your shoulders. And then if you have a block, go ahead and grab that. And if you don't have a block, you could use a book or even a water bottle if it's not too heavy. And you could stay seated in this cross-legged shape if you want, or sometimes it's helpful to kind of come to a kneeling shape, but it really doesn't matter. It's whichever one you prefer. And then taking your block or whatever prop you have handy, I invite you to place your hands on either side of your block and then reach it out ahead of you. Taking a breath, noticing that you have to apply some pressure to keep the block in between your hands. And then breathing in, you might bring some awareness to your spine, perhaps floating the spine up, which doesn't necessarily mean draw your spine forward, but more toward the ceiling. And then inhaling, reaching the block up. Seeing if you can keep your elbows parallel as you reach the block back toward your spine or neck. And it might not touch, and that's okay, it doesn't have to. And then breathing in and resetting. I'll turn so you can see. So notice if when you reach your block back, if your elbows start to splay open. And if so, that's okay. Maybe that's just the range of motion that you're working with today. But if possible, to add a little bit of concentration, you might keep your elbows parallel to one another as you reach back with your block. It takes a little bit more effort, and some minor muscles have to do quite a bit of work. All right, so just a couple more. Last one. Doesn't look like we're doing much, but my shoulders are already warm. Maybe yours are too. And releasing the block whenever you're ready. All right. Go ahead and shake out your arms. Feel whatever sensation is present. Maybe you have a burning sensation. Maybe it's just warm. What can you feel in your arms? What can you feel in your body? And then we'll continue moving. So, if you'd like to join me in a tabletop shape, you might find a blanket to place underneath your knees if you want it. I know that I definitely prefer it. let's stretch out our legs, seeing as we've been sitting for a few moments. So you could meet me here in a tabletop shape and then extend one leg back behind you, maybe tucking your toes on the floor, and you could rock back and forth, pressing your heel back. Or maybe you float your leg up, giving an ankle roll, maybe bend and stretch through your knee. Anything goes here. Taking just another breath or two. Getting our blood circulation moving. And then if you're ready for the next side, you could find your way there. Okay. When you're satisfied, I'll meet you back in a tabletop with the knees somewhere underneath the hips and the hands somewhere underneath the shoulders, give or take. But if your shoulders feel really tight or your wrists feel really tight, it might actually be helpful to take a little bit of a wider stance, just a little bit, for your hands, or perhaps if it's your wrists, walking your hands just slightly forward. So you choose what works best. And then a few cat-cows here, or organic movement. You choose. If you want some organic movement, you could just begin flowing through your body, however it feels right. If you prefer more of that rhythmic cat-cow, you could start to inhale and allow your spine to drop down towards the earth, perhaps even lifting your gaze a little bit. And then exhale, you could round your spine up towards the sky as you tuck your chin and your tailbone in toward one another. Another 4 breaths here, in and out. Organic movement or cat-cow or a little bit of both. What do you feel? What's present for you today? Last breath. I allow myself to slow down and rest. My need for rest is not failure. It is how I honor my needs. If you'd like to join me in turning to the long side of your mat, you could find your way there in a tabletop. And from tabletop, option to extend one leg out. I'm going to start with my right side, but you could start with either side that you prefer. So starting with one leg out, option to just stay here. Maybe you're already feeling a stretch or a sensation in this right hip. Or if you want a little bit of movement, you could keep the top of your left foot on the floor or tuck your left foot and rock back and forth. Just simply being with this sensation in your extended leg, feeling what's present. Letting your breath flow however it wants to flow. For one more breath. And if you're rocking, you could continue for as long as you like, or slowly start to meet me back at center. And option here to stay if this is working for you. Or you could, if your right leg is extended, you could keep your left hand planted on the floor. And then with the breath in, start to peel your right hand up, peel the right shoulder back. As you reach your right hand up towards the sky, you could stay here, or option 2 is to reach your right arm over your head, lengthening through your ribs, through your side body, breathing in and out for one more breath. Inhale to reach your right arm back up if you feel complete. And then exhale to settle your right hand back down, bringing your extended leg in and switching it out for the other side in your own timing. And again, you could find stillness. You could find this rocking motion. Moving at your own pace, moving in a way that honors your needs, that allows your body to receive what it needs to receive from this movement, from this moment. 2 more breaths in and out. You might decide to continue exploring whatever you're exploring, or you might meet me back at center, planting your right hand on the floor, and inhale. Option to peel your left shoulder back as you reach your left arm up towards the sky. Option to stay here, or reach the left arm over, stretching through your side body, breathing in here, exhaling however you want to, and inhale to reach your arm back up, and then exhale to settle back in toward the floor, bringing your left leg in. We can rock on over to our initial orientation on our mat. And then here you have a choice. You have 3 choices. You could take your knees as wide as your mat for a child's pose, touching your toes back behind you, sending your hips back toward your heels. And then you could walk your hands forward, maybe resting your forehead on the floor, or you might even keep your gaze up, maybe stacking your fists and resting your chin. Another option is to find puppy pose or downward facing dog. So if you know which one you want, you can find your way there now. If you're not sure what either one of those shapes are, then I will show you. So from puppy pose, or for puppy pose, you could find a tabletop, a slight engagement in your center. This is just to support your lower back. As we walk our hands forward, and then lower our chest and heads toward the mat. Now, your chest won't necessarily touch the mat. It just kind of goes in that direction. Your forehead might rest on the floor. It might not. This is a really big opener through the shoulders, through the chest. And then downward facing dog would be to tuck your toes, lift the hips. I like to keep my knees bent as I send my hips back, really stretching through the shoulders. And then I like to walk out my feet here so that one heel releases while the other one lifts. Looks like you're kind of pedaling your feet. If you're in down dog, Your feet could be hip distance apart, or they might even be as wide as the mat, especially if your body's needing some extra space. I could definitely use some extra space today myself. So wherever you're at, whatever you choose, let's take another 3 breaths. One more. Okay. If you are in puppy pose or child's pose, option to move into a tabletop. And then you might begin to walk your hands back as we take a forward fold at the back of our mat. So your stance could be hip distance apart or narrower, or your your feet can be as wide as your mat. As we fold forward, so whenever you get here, I'll meet you there. And option to add a bend into your knees. It could be a really deep bend, or it could be more of a micro bend. And then bringing some awareness into your head, into your neck. Noticing if there's any muscle activation there, any tension, and would it be okay to allow your head to grow heavy? If you're ready to find a halfway lift, option to place your hands on your shins as we inhale and lengthen through the spine, or you could place your hands on your quads if you'd like to come up a little bit further. There's no right or wrong. Breathing in, and then exhale to fold right back down. Inhale for another halfway lift. And exhale to fold. All right. This time we'll come all the way up. So planting your feet on the floor, feeling rooted here, bending your knees. Inhale. Start to reach on up. Exhale. Option to bring your hands to heart center, or maybe release them to your sides. If you feel a little dizzy, maybe keep your eyes open. That's just your blood pressure regulating. Taking a moment here to feel your feet on the floor. Option to adjust your stance. Spread your feet out. Maybe rock onto your toes and your heels, feeling this connection between you and what's supporting you. All right, when you're ready, you might begin to step your left foot forward, or your right, really doesn't matter, but I'm gonna start with my left foot. And I'll meet you in a warrior 2. So that means that our front foot, for me it's my left leg, is gonna face toward the top of my mat, while my back foot can either be bladed, so it's like parallel with the back of my mat, or if you'd appreciate a little bit more space in your hip, your back hip, you could kind of pigeon toe your right foot in just a little bit, not a ton, but it makes a big difference in your right hip. And when you feel a bit more steady, a little bit stable, because you could change how wide or short your stance is, how far away your feet are from one another. And then when you are ready, you could bend into your front leg. So for me, it's my left leg. As your back leg stays nice and strong and rooted, plugging your right leg into the floor. Warrior two. Your hands could come to your hips, or you could extend your arms out in a T, looking over your front hand. Breathing in here, feeling the strength of your legs, noticing all of the work that your quads are doing, your calves, your feet to hold you up. If you feel wobbly, that's okay. Doesn't mean you're doing any less work. If you'd like to join me in some movement, you might inhale, reach your arms up as you lengthen through both legs. Exhale, settle back into your warrior two. Two more just like that if you want to take them. One more. Option to stay here, or inhale, reach your arms up as your legs stay as they are, and then exhale to reach on over for your left leg, bringing your left forearm to the top of your left leg, or grabbing a block, placing your left hand on your block as your right arm, your top arm, reaches over toward your ear for extended side angle pose. One or two more breaths here. However, you can leave whenever you want. And then an inhale to rise all the way up. You might move your block to the other side if you used one. And then turning both toes, both feet, toward the same side of your mat, facing forward. And then your opposite leg can start to point toward the top of your mat. We'll set up for warrior two on our other side. So adjusting your back foot, checking your stance, whatever you need to change, go ahead and do it. And then lunging into your front leg, hands to the hips, or into a T. Finding your strength, finding this rooted sensation through your body. And then if you'd like to, you could stay here, or inhale, reach up, lengthen through the legs. Exhale, warrior two. Two more if you want to take them. Last one. Option for extended side angle pose. Legs can stay in this lunge as we reach the arms up, just to lengthen through the side body. And then exhale, lean on over for right forearm to right quad, or grabbing a hold of your block. Your top arm might find its way over toward your ear. Two more breaths. And then if you're ready to leave, inhaling, reaching up, releasing your hands, moving your block, and then pointing your toes back to the top of your mat. All right, one more shape here, and then we'll move out of this standing place. All right, let's take a goddess pose if you'd like to join me. That means we'll take both of our feet, point them outward so that our toes point out, our heels point in, kind of making this really wide like V with your feet. And then bending into your knees. Now this might feel, as you start to sink the hips down, it might feel like, ooh, very intense, very big shape, a lot to hold here. Totally understandable. So if it helps, you could start to add some movement, maybe back and forth, left or right. You could start to inhale, lengthen through the legs, reach your arms up, and then maybe exhale as you bend your elbows, kind of like making a W with your arms, or like you're holding platters. So you choose inhale to reach up, exhale to sink into it, or just take some organic movement. We'll take another 2 breaths here. All right, you could continue doing what you're doing or find some stillness. Option to place your hands on your quads. Just for a moment, feeling this rootedness, feeling this strength. And then keeping your legs in, goddess. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, if you'd like to take a side angle pose, you could rest your forearm on your quad, reach on over, just like what we were just doing. Then inhale, center. Exhale, other side. Taking a few more at your own pace. But remember, you can leave this pose anytime you want to. I know it's a lot of work. I know your legs are probably just as warm as mine are. Last one. My legs are burning. All right, inhale, meet you at center, reaching through your legs. Hands can come down as we start to heel toe our feet back together. Let's take a pause. What do you feel? Where do you feel it? I'll meet you at the back of your mat. And if you'd like to join me for a forward fold, you could inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale. Start to bend into your knees, find your way down. Option for a halfway lift here. Inhaling to lengthen through your spine. And then exhale to fold it right back down. You might begin to walk your hands forward. If you'd like to take a downward dog one more time, this is your chance to shift your hips back, or you might lower down to your knees for puppy pose or child's pose. There are no points for doing something that you don't want to do. So, can you honor your body in this moment by choosing what is going to nourish you the most? What is calling to you? And I invite you to take another 5 rounds of breath here. I allow myself to slow down and rest. My need for rest is not a failure. It is how I honor my needs. Rest is how you honor your needs. If you're not already in child's pose, I invite you to join me here. If you'd like to take a little thoracic top of your spine twist with me, and we'll take thread the needle, you could begin to reach your arms out, if they're not already, from child's pose,
And lift your gaze to look at your hands. Keeping your left hand planted, you could inhale and reach your right arm back. And then exhale, right palm toward you, scoop it underneath. And bring your right shoulder toward the floor, resting it on the mat. Just twisting just the upper part of your spine. Now, you could keep your left hand extended like this, or if it feels helpful to maybe plant your left hand in front of your face, that's also an option. A third option is to take your left arm and wrap it around your back, maybe hooking your hand onto your right thigh. But again, you can honor what calls to you, what feels right. I invite you to be here with me for another 3 rounds of breath. If you'd like to stay here longer, you can, or you might start to move out of this shape by placing your left hand in front of your face and pressing your left hand into the floor, unraveling through your right side, and then resetting. This time your right hand stays planted as we inhale, reach the left arm back. And needling through, finding the sweet spot for you. Three more rounds of breath. If you're ready to move out of this shape, option to plant your right hand in front of your face. Press into your hand and unravel. All right. You might join me in a seated shape. So a seated shape, but preferably not having anything underneath you, like a blanket or a bolster. Okay, 2 options here. We're gonna do there would be an option for a fire log pose, which is also known as like full pigeon, or pigeon from a different variation. So I'll show you the different variation first. And taking your hands back behind you, here's option 1. Having your feet planted on the floor. This will seem probably familiar to you because we've done it before in a different way. But taking your right leg, crossing your right ankle over your left knee, noticing that like if it feels really rough, really difficult to get your right leg up, you could start with your left leg extended. Cross it here, and then start to draw your left leg back. And stop whenever you feel like you've hit your max, or maybe a little bit less than your max, right? Okay, so that's option 1. Option 2 is to cross your left leg underneath you, just like you would, like you were gonna cross your leg sitting on the floor, but instead of having your left leg at an angle, seeing if you can keep your left shin a bit more parallel with this line on your mat. And then taking your right leg, you could cross your right ankle over,
your left knee. Now, this can be a really intense stretch. Now, if you notice, my hips are really tight, and that's why there's so much space in between my knee and my ankle. If that's the case for you, you could just leave the space here if it's not bothering you. If it is bothering you, you could take a blanket and kind of fill that space to provide a little bit of support, or a block even. And if this shape is just not where your body wants to be today, please don't feel like you have to force yourself to do it. You could always go to option 1, which will work the same muscles that we're doing in this shape, just from a different orientation. So go ahead and get settled wherever you want to be. And we'll just kind of hang out here. Let's take a good 8 rounds of breath, 8 to 9. And if you are choosing to be in this fire log pose, this full pigeon, option to take your top foot, so your right leg, your right foot, and flex your right toes back toward your right shin. And this is just to protect your knee and to keep it in a correct alignment so we're not tweaking anything. Gentle reminder that you are in complete control here. You can choose to leave this shape at any time. No questions asked, and you definitely don't need my permission. The only permission that you need is yours. These hip opening shapes can be full of emotion, and so if you find yourself beginning to have an emotional release or something else, it's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with it. It happens to all of us. We'll take our last few breaths on this side. When you're ready to release, please be very mindful. You might even take your hands back behind you to kind of take the edge off, and then slowly unravel. Option to give your leg a stretch out. Maybe both legs, if both legs would appreciate it. And then we'll set up for the other side. So option 1 or option 2. If you are doing the fire log pose, it will be now your right leg on the floor with your left leg stacked on top. If you're in option 1, it'll be your right leg on the floor with your left leg crossed over, if you followed the sides that I did last time. So you might notice one hip is tighter than the other, or maybe more open. And if so, that's also to be expected. We do not use the two sides of our bodies equally. So go ahead and make any adjustments needed. Again, you could apply a blanket or a block right here, or you could just leave your knee floating, whatever works for you. And I invite you to hang out here for another 8 to 9 breaths, or as little or as much as you want. And again, it's totally normal to feel some emotions come up. And if you don't, that's okay too. It's not like a requirement. It just may happen. And if you're in fire log pose, you could draw your left toes, the foot on top, back toward your left shin, pressing through your left heel to provide a little bit of protection for your knee. I remember when I first started practicing yoga, a really long time ago. I had no idea what trauma-informed yoga was, and I was in a pigeon pose. And for years, every time I went into pigeon pose, I would have this huge emotional wave of like anger and fear come up. And it took a while for that to release, which it's different for everybody, but that was my experience with any form of like deep hip opening poses for quite a while, to the point where I even like avoided them because it was just so uncomfortable. But I eventually settled in, and each time it felt like I was like pouring a little bit out from like a bucket until the bucket wasn't so full and heavy anymore. So that's been my experience with some hip opening shapes, especially pigeon pose. Might be similar or different for you. If you are about done on this side, you could start to unravel, moving slowly and gently. You could extend your legs out in front of you, stretching in any way that you want to. Maybe even shaking your legs out a little bit. All right. And I'm thinking we can do a little breath work from our Shavasana and kind of let that guide us into our time of rest. So finding your way into any Shavasana, any time of rest shape that you want to be in. You could lie on your back, you could lie on your stomach, on your side. You could stay seated. You could do anything you want to do, even child's pose. It's whatever you want. I am going to stay seated myself because that just feels welcome to my body today. So settling in, grabbing any props you might need. And if you don't feel like doing a pranayama practice, a breathwork practice, you can just go straight into your Shavasana. Just letting yourself sink in and let go. If you'd like to join me for a bit of pranayama, I offer you Ujjayi breath today, our victory breath. Also described as like an oceanic breath. And we've done this breath before, but if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a slight engagement of your throat muscles, and it elongates your exhale. So a good way to kind of find that engagement is to imagine that you are breathing onto like a mirror, like you're trying to fog a mirror up, and just like that. So softly, gently, slowly, take a normal breath in through your nose. And then as you exhale, you could fog the mirror up. Not a lot of engagement is required. We're not trying to be forceful, just really gently. So just continuing like that. Normal breath in. And then next time that you exhale, continue fogging the mirror up, but this time, close your mouth. And keeping that same engagement as you exhale now, continue to breathe in normally through your nose. And exhale, finding that gentle throat engagement. And if ever this breath practice is not supportive for you, please release it. Just allow your natural breath to take over. And you might continue this breath practice for the remainder of our Shavasana, our time of rest, or you might forgo it completely. And we'll be here for the next 3 or 4 minutes. And I'll let you know when this time of rest is complete. You could stay in this place of rest until you are satisfied. And at any point that you are ready to move out of this place, you could start by releasing your Ujjayi breath if you are still practicing it. Maybe add some small movements into your body. If you're lying on your mat, you might make your way over into a side-lying shape. And then in your own timing, you could slowly press yourself up, taking your time. I'll meet you in a seated shape of your choice. Option to bring your hands to heart center or leave them wherever you'd like. I welcome you to take a collective breath with me, starting by exhaling all of your air out. And we'll breathe in together. Rest is how I honor my needs. Thank you for practicing with me today. If you have any questions about this series or just need any support whatsoever, please feel free to send me an email or leave a comment below this video, and I'll be sure to get back to you. My hope for you is that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thanks.